Hey, Southeast Missouri sports fans. Enjoy the show and want to take it on the go? You can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or YouTube. Tune in as they air by searching SEMO Sports Zone wherever you may be listening. Welcome to the SEMO Sports Zone presented by A-Corp Sports. You are listening to this on Thursday, February 6th. Dave, how are we doing today?
Doing just fine. I'm not doing as well as Puxico fans. They're walking around with their chests out. Boy, they think there's something right now.
You seem like you have something you want to say.
Oh, well, I'm like, yeah, I mean, they're just walking around. I love it. Honestly, I do. I love the passion of the fans and everything, but the one good game and they're just walking around like, we can beat Sykeston, we can beat the Lakers, we can beat the, whoever else you want to throw in front of us. We're the best defensive team that's ever played. Yeah, okay.
All right.
Those feelings get a little soft if somehow you don't get out of districts or you lose a game here or there. I'm like, it's a tough line right there just to be walking. And Puxico's a very good team. I don't want to take anything away from Puxico. They're a good team. They played a really good game against Woodland. Certainly didn't follow it up with a good game, against Richland. You look at their schedule. I'm not impressed with their schedule. They played three tough teams, in my opinion: Chadwick, Thayer, and Woodland. Mm-hmm. Other teams are playing tough games night after night that they're going to be seeing possibly down the line. So, have fun, enjoy yourselves, but don't get too big headed here because I don't know if, I just don't want, you see these teams and we see it every year, some of the smaller schools, especially, that they have these really good teams. And I love the passion of the fans. Mm-hmm. At the same time, calm down. I mean, it was one good game. I mean, honestly, they hadn't played that well, leading up to that, with some of the games they'd played. So, and they didn't follow it up with a good game. So I'm like, you need to play a bunch of good games in a row before you start saying that you want to play Sykeston where you would lose by 20 or 25 points. So,
yeah, I mean, to me, I've had this argument before, and, Puxico's strength of schedule, like you said, those good games that they did play, those were really good games.
Yeah.
I just don't know how I feel about, can you really hang your hat on, we beat up Stuttgart County teams over and over this year?
No, you can't. And not when you're going to play teams. I mean, honestly, you look at the Bootheel. The Bootheel's beating up on each other. There's a lot deeper talent in the Bootheel, and they're playing a lot tougher teams.
And when they want to win a game, obviously, we saw that between Crothersville and Haytide, they will play each other to the wall. Yeah,
and have fun with that. We'll definitely talk about that game. I mean, I look at Charleston, and Charleston, I'm on record by saying I think Charleston's winning that district, and I've not went off that at all, and I'm not going to. There's nothing I've seen in this season that's going to tell me that Charleston is not going to win that district at this point. They won 14 straight district titles, and they don't do that by accident. Mm-hmm. You don't just walk in the gym and beat Charleston just by puffing out your chest and saying, hey, we're having a heck of a year. But Charleston doesn't care. Charleston has faced teams like this year after year after year that have had great years, and they've had 10 losses, 11 losses, 12 losses, and they still come out and win these district titles. They're not afraid. They don't care, and they love knocking off teams like that have had these great seasons. They love it. So yeah, I'm on record as saying that I think Charleston's going to win that district. And while they're playing Jackson, taking them to overtime, and they're playing teams up in St. Louis, and they're playing really tough opponents. Puxico's playing East Carter. Puxico's playing Greenville. Come on. I mean, that's not, there's two different levels right there. And, so I don't want to see, it's just tough because I root for the small schools. I really do. I really like the small schools. But At the same time, when they start chirping and everything and they have these big games, it's like, okay, well, but you've got to back it up with more than just one game.
I'll say this because now that I've kind of seen it is, if Puxico does end up beating Charleston in that game that we're kind of hypothetically talking about, they will let you know that they beat Charleston.
They're not quiet, and that's fine. Good for them, and that's fine. And I'm not the only one who's saying Charleston's going to win that game or whatever. Assuming they even play, Charleston might get knocked off before then, or Puxico may get knocked off before then. I'll ask you. I'll pose you a question. Do you take? You have a choice. You can take Puxico, or you can take. Let me name some of these Class II schools just from the area.
Sure.
Charleston, South Pemiscot, Campbell, Haytide, Neelyville, Chaffee, Bernie, South Iron, any of those schools. All of those, you can take either Puxico or the field. Who are you taking? And I'm going to take the field in that, me personally.
I mean, hypothetically, yeah, you would take the field, but that's just because I haven't seen all these teams play each other. Obviously, I've seen Puxico play Bernie, but otherwise, I mean, I just don't know what the comparison's going to be.
Yeah, I don't either. But I mean, I just know that, look, Puxico is a very good basketball team, and I don't want to take that away. I know they're probably, I know they're going to say stuff, and I don't care. I don't read that stuff anyway. So, but Puxico's a very good basketball team, but there are a lot of other really good basketball teams that have played a little bit tougher schedules, and they're just, these other schools, Puxico's got a target on them now, just by some of the stuff that's been said just in the last few days. And I know, I live in Sykes, and I've been seeing some posts from just some Sykeston people who are like, let's play them. If they had an opening on the schedule, we'll play them, but, it's just, I love the passion. I really do, though. It makes me happy. It's fun. It makes it fun to banter back and forth like this.
Sure. I think for Puxico right now, realistically, what I would do as a fan is I would take a step back. I would say, hey, our team is great. Let's keep supporting our team, no doubt. Be a little more realistic in your expectations, though, because you are running across just a very stacked Class 2 this year.
Yeah, it's a tough, and if you get out of it, great.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be, and honestly, I will be rooting for Puxico to do well in that district. I don't want them to fail. I don't want them to, get bumped out of districts. I want to see a team like that do well. But, at the same time, I'm like, I'm never going to, go against a Charleston team right now.
It's hard to.
Who's won 14 straight district titles. I'm like, why would you go against something like that?
And that seems like the general consensus that everybody's just kind of saying, it's like, look out, they're coming.
Yeah. And, I would love to, I don't know. I would love to see a game Puxico would play against a team like that, an athletic team that gets up and down the floor. I mean, instead, I mean, they're in the OFC, which is a fine. I mean, that's a fine conference, and year after year, that's going to be a good conference for them. But at the same time, this year, I think they need something to challenge them a little bit more to get them ready for a game like a Charleston or a Hayti or one of these schools in the Bootheel that are going to be coming out, and a Campbell even. I mean, these teams are good. Whoever comes out of that district in the Bootheel, they're going to be good. I mean, any of those teams. So, and you're probably going to have to face them in a quarterfinal.
And I'll say this, as far as that goes, is like seeing what your competition might be. Puxico wanted to play some of these teams, but those teams didn't want to play Puxico.
And it could be, very well could be. I mean, that is very legit and very fair. Teams will dodge other teams, that's for sure. And maybe they don't want to play Puxico, but Puxico, I think, needs, I would have liked to have seen them play somebody. I would love them to see them play Sykeston. When Campbell won the state title, they went over to Sykeston and played in the field house, and it was a great game. It went down to the wire. It was a really great game. It wasn't a team quite the caliber of this year's Sykeston team, but it was a really great game, and I think that was a very beneficial for Campbell, going a long way, for their run. Yeah,
and I think the separation between teams right now is just, like I said, beating up on Stoddard County teams, it doesn't really serve you anymore, because you beat Dexter, you beat Bernie, you can beat pretty much everybody. They've run the table on Stoddard County except for Bloomfield. They just haven't played them yet. And at this point, it's just like, what are you getting from it?
Well, and
how does it buff you up for later? And
here's my hot take: the Stoddard County Conference is not what we thought it was as far as talent wise. It's the parity's there,
but a lot of people say it is.
But the talent wise, I mean, you've got Bernie, which is a fine team. I mean, they're a fine team, but they're all sophomores. Dexter's sophomores and juniors. They're not very. I mean, considering what they could be in the future, I mean, they're not an elite team around the area.
Right.
I mean,
most of these teams are still in that, like, I don't want to call it a rebuild phase, but essentially that's what you're doing. Right. You're building for the future.
They're not what I would consider really good teams, and the really good teams that Puxico's played, Chadwick, Thayer, and Wood, and they've won two out of the three. And good for them. I mean, I'm glad they're playing them, but I think they need to play more of those type games.
Yeah. And I mean, as far as that Woodland game goes, it's the more I'm kind of thinking, did Woodland come to play? Was it just that off night for them, or did Puxico really just dominate the ball? Like, of course they did in that game, but like, what was the psychological aspect that led to that? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see once they play each other again. And if the score's the same, then that'll be what it is. Like, Puxico's just the better team all around. But right now, it's not a big question mark. That's Puxico playing their best game. Can they play their best game going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I want to see it again. We talked about it in the last pod. I mean, is it a one-off? And, they follow it up with a dud against Richland, who was missing 2 starters.
Yeah. I mean, it makes it sound like haters, but when I have people texting me saying it's just like, all right, they're back to what they were, it's just like, well, doesn't make me feel vindicated, but at the same time, it kind of does.
And then, the follow it up with an East Carter game. I mean, it was fine. They won by 20-something points, but they're supposed to win that one by 20-something points. It's not an impressive win. I mean, it is what it is. Puxico defends well. They do defend well. If they hit shots the way they did against Woodland, they're gonna beat a lot of teams, and it could very well win their district. I mean, there's nothing saying they can't. That's the way they have to play, but they're gonna have to make shots. They're gonna have to do the things that they need to do. What they need to be doing night in, night out. But it doesn't seem like they're always hitting playing with their A game. I'll say that.
Which, I mean, at this point, I can say that Puxico kind of lives and dies by the 3 at this point. And when they're on, they're on. But when they're off, sometimes that can not lead to like disaster, but closer games than you really want them to be.
Yeah, exactly. And look, again, I think Puxico is a very good basketball team, and I don't want to take anything away from them. And I'm not even talking about the team itself as much as just some of the fans that like to chirp and everything. And so, we chirp back. That's what makes it fun.
Sure. Any other games on your radar that we should talk about?
That was the main one. Just the main thing that I thought it was fun. But the Bootheel Conference tournament, how about that on Tuesday night?
Man, you want to talk about the billing for the Battle of the Bootheel, something that got skirted just because of I think it was one of the cancellations, illness, whatever.
Yeah.
But to have it now and have a game like that, man, I think those fans were just happy about how that turned out.
Yeah, I was worn out watching that game. Up and down. Hayti played so well that first half. Crothersville just came out and turned up the pressure in that second half, and especially that third quarter. And then that fourth quarter was just big shot after big shot.
You could see some fourth quarter steals where it's just like everybody just looks gassed that it even happened. It's just like, I don't even know how to defend this at this point.
Yeah, I think Alexander left the game with some cramps or something. But yeah, they had a couple of guys that were just cramping up. Crothersville did, and still they both of those teams gave 100% effort. And man, that was a fun game. Crothersville just happened to pull it out at the end, but either one of those teams could have won that game. And just a fantastic basketball game. You can't. That's one of the better games I've seen. That one, Dexter Burney this year, very very similar. Just
this passion-filled rivalry games.
Just teams just leaving it all out there on the floor.
And they play different when that happens too, because you go into this game, you're probably thinking it's like, well, Crothersville's record probably isn't as good as Hayti, so they're probably down considering. But it's just like, but no, they played it just records whatever. Who you played before, whatever. That was just a fresh game for the season at that point.
Yeah. It was just, it was just a lot of fun. I really hope they make up their conference game that it was called for sickness or whatever it was at that time. I really hope they play that one again, because that game was a lot of fun. And how about the Campbell South Penn game was a lot of fun too. Campbell, missing a starter. I think another one was maybe sick, but still, man, they played so well, and that was a good game with South Penn. South Penn was only down like a point with about 30 seconds left or something, and Campbell went on a little run there at the end, got a couple steals and layups. Yeah,
and South Pemiscot, for them, they just couldn't get over the hump. Forgive the pun at that point, but probably down about like 5 or 6 points, and they just could not really break that up until the end. But it was a great game. Regardless, man, those 4 teams in the Bootheel Conference are just so good and so fun to watch.
I don't want to play any of them. Imagine that district tournament down there is going to be just brutal. Mm-hmm. That Class 1, I believe, is Class 1 district or Class 2 District 1, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Then you got to throw Neelyville into that too.
And you're throwing Neelyville in there, who just beat South Iron, who's, I believe, state ranked. So have fun with that. And South Iron or Neelyville is another team that's coming on late, and man, that's going to be a good one. And, Crothersville will be up in Class 3. They'll have a chance to win that district. I think them and East Prairie in that Class 3 District 1 will be the 2 favorites there. So, there's a lot of talent in the Bootheel this year. And, we were talking about the Stoddard County Conference. I think there's a ton of parity in the Stoddard County Conference. There's some pretty good teams. Sure. There's some really good teams in the Bootheel Conference with a lot of parity at the top. It's maybe top to bottom, the parity is better in the Stoddard County, but the Bootheel's got the top 4. Man, those are some 4 very good basketball teams.
And it's pretty funny because I think about as far as all those teams in the Bootheel, you might have a couple teams that kind of rotate into position of just this team take like Zenith, like replace it with Portageville, I would not be surprised. Just like that's just how like the way it flows, because Bootheel's always like that, and just having good teams top to bottom that can really just switch in and out. Yeah, they are, and they're all these guys are just playing really well this year, and Zenith, like you said, Zenith's a team that's kind of they've played these teams really close, they just can't get over that hump and win. It's still very competitive, but they're still very competitive. They're not a bad team either. So a lot of fun down there. Farmer, man, for South Pembescott, he is a heck of a player. Just not real big, but man, he can play. Oh, but he throws himself into everything he does. Yeah, he does. Oh man, he's got to be sore, the next day after a game. And some of they play a lot of these back-to-back games, and it's like, man, he gives it his all. I like watching South Penn play. I like watching Campbell play. Campbell can really score, get up and down the floor when they want to. And they're just a tough team too. I'm really sold on these Bootheel Conference teams. Yeah, and like you said, playing all those games that they did in the last week, like back to back to back, what it felt like every team was playing, just pretty much not in a 7-day stretch, but it sure felt like that. And then go right from that into this tournament. I mean, geez, how's that beef you up for the end of the season? Yeah, and these teams are tested. They're playing close games. They know how to win these close games. They're not going to be phased when you get into a district tournament and you've got a close game going on. They're not, they're used to it. I think Campbell starting with Overton at the very beginning of the year, I think that was a great first game to play. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, they play some tough teams, inside and out. I think they're going to get Risco on Saturday. And I mean, yeah, Risco's a Class 1 school, but they're a very good team. That's going to be a great game over at Three Rivers. And so, Campbell's not afraid to play teams. Like I said, whenever they had their run to state, they came over and played Sykeston in a game and gave Sykeston everything they wanted in that game. And it was a lot of fun. And again, I really think that helped propel them, on their way to state. So, Campbell's, they're definitely not afraid to play tough ones. Yeah, and we've talked about that kind of all year, just strength of schedule, how that kind of sets teams up. And, at this point, I mean, you don't have to look at records to see who's good. And we talk about it with Neelyville's, like at the very beginning of the season, Neelyville wasn't record-wise, nothing to talk about. Game-wise, I mean, they're always going to be in that conversation at this point. Yeah, I think they've won 8-9 games in a row now. I didn't see their score from Donovan on Tuesday night, but I'm assuming they won that game. If so, that'd be, I think, 9 or 10 games in a row, and they're rolling right now. And that's a team that we could see them play Puxico in the OFC championship game next week. So that may be a game that would help Puxico down the line. When they play that. So that's a. I mean, Neelyville, man, they're playing well. As far as that goes, too, if Puxico wins that OFC tournament, this will be a record for the school, winning 3 tournaments in a single year. Yeah, and that's because in '89 they didn't win the, or '89-90 they didn't win the Stoddard County. They lost to Bernie in a fantastic game. Anthony Bean hit some free throws with no time on the clock to send that game into overtime, and Bernie ended up winning it. And so that's good for them. And again, I like this Puxico. This Puxico team's a very good basketball team. I really like them. Mm-hmm. Really like watching them play. I'm looking forward to them seeing how they play a Neelyville. Actually, more seeing how a Neelyville plays a Puxico in this case. Yeah, because kind of Neelyville's kind of flown under the radar a little bit, and as they keep getting better, it's just going to be interesting to see how they match up against some of the better teams. Well, I feel like at this point too, I mean, and I don't know what most of these coaches are thinking, but I assume on the radar, kind of the conversation is, well, we know how to play most of our competition, but we need to know how to play Puxico at this point. Yeah. So I would assume most coaches are watching film and just kind of scheming on one, how to get around that defense, but 2, just what kind of offense can we bring to it? Yeah, I mean, Puxico's on everybody's radar right now. I mean, if that's what they were wanting, they got that. I mean, they're definitely on everybody's radar, not only with the way they played, but the amount of fans that they have out there who are on social media and things. So everybody and making away courts their second home. Yeah, and so good for good. Yeah, Puxico travels. That's one thing. They've got great fans that travel. They shut the town down. They are definite supporters of their basketball program, but yeah. So they will definitely travel. But everybody's aware of Puxico at this point. Any other games to talk about? We got the Scott Miss Conference, which was it's kind of almost like the Stoddard County Conference. It's kind of just been a lot of blowouts leading to the championship.
Scott City just rolled through Orion. That wasn't as 50, 60 points. East Prairie, that was kind of a close game for a half. They kind of pulled away about midway through the third quarter against Chaffee and pulled away there, kind of set up that much anticipated final. I will say, did you happen to see any of the Kelly-Scott Central losers bracket game, anything that happened in that game?
Kelly won that game?
Kelly won that game. But
that's what I know.
Yes. What a lot of people don't know, there's a little bit floating around out there. I think there may be something on social media or something. But so apparently at the end of the game, Scott Central had just 3 players. Everybody had fouled out. They were down to 3 players. Kelly was just kind of holding the ball at half court, just running out the clock. There's about a minute or 2 left on the clock. And I think from what I understand, one of the players kind of went up and said something to the Kelly coach and said, "Hey, can I dunk it?" And so he's like, "Well, go ahead." And so he dunks it, and then they let the Scott Central kids go down and dunk it, and they went back and forth till the clock ran out trying dunks. And it was just a lot of fun in a game. It really brings to the point of, hey, basketball's fun. It's a sport, and we can sit here and we can go back and forth with fans and stuff because it's all in good fun. This is a great sport. Basketball is a great sport, and the main thing is these kids are out there having a blast and memories that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. And in a losers bracket game in the Scott Miss Conference, you've got these 2 teams that are having rough seasons. Mm-hmm. Both of them, I think together combined, they got like 6 or 7 wins. Just rough seasons. But at the same time, these kids had a moment here where number one, they won't forget, and just you kind of remember what kind of fun basketball can be. I want to give a shout out to Coach Trimmer and Coach Carlisle with Kelly and Scott County Central for letting the kids do that, and then the kids doing that because it's fun, and the game was in hand. There was nothing, and you've got a lot of animosity in some teams and stuff, and they're going back and forth, and you got a lot of stuff that you see that's not what we want to see in basketball games. That's the kind of stuff you want to see, and it was just fun and brought a smile to my face.
Yeah, it sounds like a great moment. I'll have to go back and watch that because that. Like you said, that's a bright spot.
Yeah, I think there's something on social media. I saw just a little clip of something, but I heard a lot more about it, and just something that's very, very, very cool. And if anybody does get a chance to go and look at that, go try to find that because I think it's just a great thing for local basketball.
Yeah, it definitely sounds awesome. You want to talk about Charleston and Jackson?
Yeah, that was another good game. Charleston, they just keep getting better. They've got their full complement of players, and they're rolling now. They lost, and we said that Jackson was the favorite to win that game, but they gave Jackson all they wanted. Went to overtime, and Cole Deck, he's still scoring. He's just a heck of a player.
Yeah, 42 points on the night. You're not going to run into that all the time. So for Charleston to take that team into overtime when dealing with something like that, hey. Hats off to him. Yeah,
6'6" guy that can score, get to the rim, but he can also pull up and shoot. Just tough to guard. And the size that Jackson has inside, you match that up against what I think the biggest kid for Charleston, maybe 6'2", and most of their guys are about 5'9" or 5'10", 5'11", 6 foot. It's not they're not a big team. And for them to match up with that well and Jackson just they just don't quit. They're a team that just gets after you and just a great basketball game. These 2 teams play well against each other. I got to see them play last year. It was at Charleston, but they just get after it, and it was just a fun game to watch, and two very good basketball teams.
What would you consider as far as Charleston's game plan, how they play? Who are they most comparable to right now?
I don't know.
Because we saw how Cape could shut down Jackson's offense.
Charleston likes to push the tempo a little bit more than Cape. They do like to get after you and guard. They'll guard you man to man, and they're going to get after you and really. But they also like to push the tempo a lot more. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to get into these slower paced games. So it's going to be more. They're someone who tries to force you to rush your shots a little bit, and then they want to get out in transition and score. I'm really anxious to see how they play against Sykeston on Saturday. I think that it's a. Obviously, Sykeston is the big favorite in that game. You play in Charleston, though. First off, if nobody has ever been to a Sykeston-Charleston game in Charleston, that is a scene into itself. That place will be packed, and it will be unbelievably loud. And the atmosphere is crazy. And then Charleston plays so well at Charleston. I mean, I think they have points just on the board, just seemingly on the board just by playing at home. But Sykes is a favorite, but I'm anxious to see how much better Charleston has gotten since the beginning of the year. Beginning of the year, we figured like a Sykeston-Charleston game, it'd be a 30, 40-point game.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be that way. I think Charleston gives them everything they got. I think it's going to be a very good game. I think Sykeston's better. I think they're going to pull it out in the end. But, man, it's going to be a fun game to watch.
See, for me, Charleston, where I guess my mindset has always been is watching them play Kennett in the SEMO conference. And that's just that kind of like that moment where it kind of felt like it's like the game's over. Who cares? That moment kind of stuck with me. But I feel like they've kind of turned that around and are just like, if a loss is a loss, whatever, we're still vibing with it. We know we're getting better. And that's what I see from Charleston at this moment.
Yeah, I think they came back. I think it was about 2 weeks later they played Kennett again and beat them 30 or something. So, I mean, Charleston is a team that they're one of the teams you can guarantee from the first day of the season to the last day of the season, they are going to improve a ton. Dexter always kind of gets them at the beginning of the year, and every year it's kind of like I can see Dexter playing with them. At the end of the year, it's like, good thing Dexter doesn't play them.
Right.
You want to get Charleston early because Charleston just again they are concerned with district titles. They want to win the Christmas tournament. They'd love to win the SEMO conference tournament, but they're not going home, extremely upset if they lose those tournaments.
No, they want to hang a banner. That's what they want to do.
Exactly. They're about hanging banners. And, they're called the factory over in that area for a reason because all they do is produce district titles. And, they are, everything about their program is on these district titles going to play for state titles. I mean, that is what satisfies them, not the regular season game against a Dexter or a Kennett or whatever. And especially if you get them into a loser's bracket game, in the SEMO conference tournament or even the Christmas tournament, you're probably not going to get their A game. You're just not going to get it because they're uber focused on one thing, and that's district titles. And they raise their game. You can just see their game. You just look at their scores from past years too. They raise their game. Once you hit to February, they're usually playing so much better than they are at the beginning of the year, and it's just a whole different, a different team almost.
Yeah, and for other teams that are going to have to compete with them, I feel like you're kind of getting a little bit nervous of just like, well, maybe don't let Sykeston play them because if they're just going to get that much better from losing, maybe we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, and the more they lose too, the more fired up they get.
Oh yeah,
it's one of those situations where they just Coach Williams just uses that to fuel them more and more, and Charleston's a good basketball team. I saw them play New Madrid County Central a few weeks ago, and they were a completely different team in that game than they were back in the SEMO conference. Just a completely different team, and they look good, getting up and down the floor. That team is a team that not only could make a run through districts, but could make a run at a state title. Because they're down in. They've won Class 3 against some really really good teams. And now you're back in Class 2 with a similar type of team that they've been winning with Class 3. They're not. Obviously, you had New Madrid in your way for a few years, and those guys are had a pretty good run. But if New Madrid's not knocking you off, then maybe you're winning those state titles. So and now you don't have to worry about them. Not only are those guys gone, but you're in a different class, and a smaller class at that. So, they're thinking that they can make a run at a state title. They're not, and they're not. They're very aware of Puxico. They're very aware of who's in front of them. The Hayties, the South Pims, the Campbells. They're aware of all them, and they're just uber focused on trying to get that district title again.
Oh man, can we just get to districts already?
I know you just want to hit that fast forward button.
Any other games that I'm missing?
No. Poplar Bluff playing without the two Durdens was able to beat New Madrid. The other night down big in the first half. Put on a press and was able to come back and win a great game, another close game against New Madrid. So kudos to them winning without the Durden. That's two big players to be without, and for Poplar Bluff to get that win, that's good for them.
Awesome. What do you think about New Madrid at this point? Do you think this is just a year that you have to learn?
Yeah, New Matter's just, I mean, you got to figure out how to handle the ball. I mean, they just can't. I mean, any team that plays New Matter, I mean, you got to press them right off. I mean, it's, I mean, there's no reason not to, because they struggle. The turnovers are their kryptonite right now. And they just, they turn over. If they don't turn it over, they look really good, but they're going to turn over if you put a lot of pressure on them. And that's kind of what Poplar Bluff did in the second half.
It's a lot of expectations put on a bunch of freshmen, though.
Yeah, I mean, well, honestly, a lot of the freshmen aren't really playing anymore. I mean, they're pretty much going with their upperclassmen, so you really can't even use that.
Sometimes that's a shift you have to make, too.
Yeah, I mean, you're just, I mean, at this point, there's no solution. You're just trying to get through the season.
Sure.
And also a shout out to Colton Johnson. Notre Dame hit 10 threes in the game against Malden.
Set a school record for that?
Yeah, school record. I want to calm down. 10 threes. Malden guard the three, man. But yeah, so a lot of stuff going on. A lot of these games are really getting going.
Yeah, we talk about how rapid pace Christmas is, but we get to this point in January, February in this moment, and then it's just kind of like, all right, no, it's not letting up.
Yeah, and then it seems like you've got the extra, hey, we're making up the games that we missed because of the snow. We're making up the games we missed because of the sickness. So now you're just throwing a bunch of games in a week and just trying to play as much as you can.
Mm-hmm. All right. You want to get to the thing that makes nobody mad?
Yeah, absolutely.
Top 10 power rankings.
Yeah.
All right, my number one, I'm taking Puxico.
I'm going to take Scott City.
I knew you would.
I was debating the whole time, and I'm like, well, I've already made Scott City or Puxico mad. I'm just going to go ahead and take Scott City.
Hey, man, your opinion is valid, and it is appreciated. I think I have to take Puxico. I just, you play a game like that against Woodland. I mean, it really sets a tone. I've already said, like, if a team has just the most dominant game possible, I'm going to put them on number one, especially if you beat the number one team on our list for weeks and weeks.
Yeah, I should, but I'm taking Scott City this week. If they lose to East Prairie, then they'll go crashing down in my top 10.
Sure, and I've taken Scott City for my number two.
My number two, I got Puxico.
Which, I mean, hey, we all know the reasons why.
Yeah.
Puxico's great. Just Scott City's great.
I just got the needle out. Just want to needle a little bit.
But Dave likes to incense people, so
I just like to poke the bear.
My number three, I've taken Campbell.
I've got Woodland. I mean, even though they got beat, they're still a good team. I mean, I'm not off the fact that they're a good team, and I still think they're I've got them up there.
They're on my list. They're not in the top. They're not in the top five. I'll tell you that. I've taken Campbell for my number three just because I think the same things I said last week about the consistent wins they had that week, they're still following up with. I mean, closer game to South Pemiscot than I was expecting, but at the same time, they held them pretty much in the same position the entire time.
Well, they did, and they were also missing one of their top players.
Exactly.
And, they're also, another one was apparently sick, just coming back from sickness, so he probably wasn't 100%. So, and that's very fair. Yeah,
and I feel like that pick was kind of scrutinized by a lot of people last week, but at the same time, I'm going to stick with it. I think Campbell is a great team, and they're just getting better.
Yeah. My
number four, I've taken Risco.
I've got Charleston. I'm moving them on up because I think they're playing well, even though they're not winning some of these games. I think they're a good team, and I'm just moving them on up.
Which at the same time, they're moving up slowly on my list. Maybe that's surprising just because it's like, well, they had a great game against Jackson. You're not considering that. And it's like, I'm absolutely considering that, but I'm considering the games some of these teams had to play against each other.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about that at the same time.
Yeah.
So my number four is Risco. Once again, Risco is a great team. Their issue right now is still just you're in Tri-County. And
yeah, just not playing anybody really.
And listen, I believe the hype. I think Risco this is a team of destiny year. At the same time, it's like I just need to see more of it. I need to see play consistent opponents, and that's not the team's fault. That's just how it is.
Yeah, Campbell on Saturday. That'll
set a tone.
That'll kind of set their mark here on this top 10.
My number five, I've taken Crothersville.
My number five, I have Campbell. So I mean, for all the same reasons. I mean, they're really good. I mean, and again, they've got a great record. I just think I got Charleston just because I'm really loving the way they're playing.
Which I completely understand. I took Crothersville just for that win against Hayti. I mean, that was two very good teams playing each other pretty much at the apex of what they had this year. So number five, Crothersville, and then number six, Hayti.
My number six, I have Risco. And again, they're going to play Richland, I think, on Thursday, and then Campbell on Saturday. So, I mean, they're going to be tested. They're going to be tested this week. So, they're out of the Tri-County. So Risco will have a little, like I said, we'll have a little more of a gauge on where we need to be slotting Risco, I think, after these two games.
And for my number seven, I've taken Charleston.
My number seven, I have East Prairie.
Which I think at this point, the disparity between bottom 5 and top 5 even is like starting to get so needle thin of just like, if one thing went a different way, I would have slotted a team in a different spot. I am
completely clueless on some of these 7, 8, 9, 10. Actually, I said that wrong. I have Caruthersville at 7, East Prairie at 8. I'm sorry. I missed that. Caruthersville at 7, East Prairie at 8.
Okay.
So, I can't even read my own writing sometimes, but yes. So, but yeah, they're all just right in there together, and it's just, it's tough.
Yeah. And it's just, that's the thing is like when I get when people get a little annoyed that their team is lower than another team in the top 10s, but at the same time, man, this is top 10 out of how many schools?
Yeah, a lot of schools.
So you got to think about that. You also just got to think, like, to me, it's just like, yeah, it's a top 10. I'm listing them in like the 10 spots I think they should be, but at the same time, it's so close.
Yeah, and it changes. Mine changes every week because, you see one thing from one team, like, oh, they look really good. And then, they look really good. So,
My number 8, I've taken Woodland. That game against Puxico was not bad enough for me to kick them out of the top 10, but it has made me scrutinize them a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's probably fair. And I probably should drop them maybe a little bit lower, but I still think they're a really good basketball team. I'm just banking on the fact that they had a really bad game. They as we're recording this, they're playing Notre Dame.
Yep.
That'll be a test too for them. If they handle Notre Dame, then I'm going to be pretty secure in my knowledge that, hey, they just had a bad game. If they get beaten by Notre Dame or don't play very well, then they're going to be probably back down at the bottom of my top 10 next week.
Exactly. And I mean, it's the benefit for everybody listening to this when the episode comes out. You already know the outcome of this game. We don't. That's why we do our top 10s on Wednesdays, just because, hey, you can tell us we're wrong and then we can adjust accordingly.
Yeah. Fortunately, whenever you post stuff on our on our things, I don't read it. So
So Dave's opinion is never swayed. So
yeah, I'm not swayed by any of that stuff. So no, there you go.
My number 9, I've taken East Prairie.
My number 9, I have Hayti. I mean, just really good team. Just unfortunate. I mean, if they beat Crowsville, then they're flipped up a couple spots. But I mean, they're just all really good.
Yeah, exactly. East Prairie, I think, tougher game against Chaffee than I was expecting, but at the same time, their offense looks pretty good. And as long as they get their defense short up, I think they're still going to be a very consistent and good team.
Yeah.
And then my number 10, I've taken South Pemmican.
Same here. And it's just, they played well the other night. They just couldn't pull off that win against Campbell, but I think they're pretty much slotted in as my number 10. I mean, I don't want to drop them too much. They and Bernie's right there with them, not too far off. So Bernie's just their shooting is just a little inconsistent. I think South Pem's just a little more consistent in the way they play, even though they don't.
I would say so.
Bernie, I just think is too dependent on some 3-point shooting at times.
Which, I mean, for Bernie at the same time is I got to think about just like, defensively, that's their bread and butter. If their shooting's off, I mean, their shooting's off. That's just how it is. But defensively, they play very well. I like their point guard, Blaine Morgan. I know he had a fever during the last game they played against Twin Rivers, so don't know how that affected it. But at the same time, like he is so like quick and he is so ready to throw himself into it. Sometimes that's great, and sometimes it's really not great. Sometimes that leads to a lot of turnovers I'm not expecting. But at the same time, yeah, I think Bernie's one of those teams that pretty much always is a receiving votes team for me.
Yeah, and I mean they handled Twin Rivers, so it didn't hurt them too bad. No. It was just one of those. I want everybody to get healthy. I mean,
Yeah, that's the hardest thing.
At least it's now and not at district time.
Yeah. It's hard because it's one of those things where it's like, well, I want to gauge teams on what they are in the moment, but at the same time, it's like, but I want to gauge teams on all being healthy at the same time because then I feel like that's the most legit game possible. And right now, I mean, for the most part, I feel like we're on the other side of teams being sick, but at the same time, you hear smatterings here and there of just like, well, this kid was out and that kid was out, and that's just
this guy here, that guy, So
just got to deal with it.
Yep.
All right, Dave. Any other teams or any games on the radar coming up?
No. Do we want to do our large school? Or are we gonna we can skip that if you want.
So sorry. No, we can do large school. I mean,
it's all the same. So
yeah,
I mean, even though a couple of them lost, I mean, although can we only do a top 4?
Yeah, that 5 spot is
that 5 spot is a rough spot there. I don't like ever having any of the teams on there. I guess Poplar Bluff because they did win last night, but I'm not impressed with Poplar Bluff.
Dexter beat Bernie, lost to Sykeston.
Yeah, Dexter has that 30, 40 point, I guess 30-something point loss to Sykeston. I can't. It's hard to put them on a top 5 where they just lost by 30. At least Poplar Bluff just won a game, I guess. I don't know. I'm not happy with any of them.
Sykeston, Cape, Jackson, Notre Dame, Poplar Bluff.
Yeah, Sykeston, Cape, Jackson, Notre Dame, and Poplar Bluff.
I'll put it on a graphic.
Yeah, there we go.
I hate that
we always excited about it.
Yeah, I hate that we sound so down about it, but there's we only have 6 teams to choose from anyway in the area. So
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we maybe next time we go class 3 down, and then class 1 and 2 we'll just do the large and or the small.
That's interesting.
Kind of switch it up a little bit. Yeah. And then Puxico will be my top team this week.
I'm sure you're not going to ruffle any feathers saying that.
No, Puxico loves me.
So any other games to talk about coming up?
Coming up, well, I mean, obviously the Bootheel Conference Championship, that's going to be, even the third place game, South Pim Hayti is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And the championship, Campbell Crothersville, that'll be, I mean, just they played an overtime game the first time. I expect it to be a game that goes down to the wire again. So a lot of fun there. Scott City, East Prairie in the Scott Miss final. I'm definitely excited to see who wins that game.
Would you like a quick update on how that Woodland Notre Dame game's going?
Probably not.
Woodland 10, Notre Dame 40 at the half.
40 to 10.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's junior varsity. That's my bad.
Oh, okay. I'll start safe. Notre Dame's winning 40 to 10 at half. That's a problem.
Notre Dame's going to be very good next year. Let's say that.
Yeah.
Because I've seen that Woodland JV play, and they're pretty good.
Yeah, they're really good.
Sorry. Didn't mean to give anybody a panic attack with that.
All of a sudden, I'm just wanting to drop my Woodland down to about 13 on that.
That's my bad. Sorry. I read that graphic very fast.
Oh, wow. Okay. Good. Good. Wow.
All right. And then let's talk about, where'd we leave off? Scott Miss.
So we were talking about Scott Miss, the East Prairie Scott City game, which I think is going to be a really good game.
If it's a 7-point game again, I think that's going to be really fun to watch. Weirdly, I'm kind of pulling for East Prairie. I don't know what's going to happen.
I've got Scott City as my number 1 team, so I've got to pull for them.
But at the same, I don't know. This is one of those feelings, and I know how these work. Either I'm really right or really wrong. Kennett Poplar Bluff, keeping that in my head. I'm going to root for East Prairie. I don't know why, but I got that. I got that inkling.
Those 2 teams know each other very well, and I expect I don't expect a Puxico Woodland situation where one team blows out the other. I don't expect that. And I gave Woodland the kiss of death last week by picking them, so I'm giving Scott City the kiss of death and picking them this week. And so if you're a betting person, it might be good to put money on East Prairie.
So what do you think about the Charleston 6-man shootout that's coming up Friday or Saturday?
Yeah, that's I know that changed so we got a change in the schedule. I believe the first game is going to be New Madrid in Richland
at 1 p.m. Yes,
that ought to be a good game. The second game is going to be Woodland is now in it, and they're going to play, I believe, Confluence Prep.
Correct.
And then I'm not sure who the next game is. I don't have it in front of me.
Cape Central will play Principia at 4.
Yeah, Principia is probably going to whip them because I think Edwards is out with a little hand injury. I don't think it's anything. He's going to be out for a long period of time, but I don't know if he's going to play in that game.
Difficult recovery to make.
And Principia is a good team if you're completely healthy. I don't think they've lost a game this year. That's probably the best team. I mean, they've already beat Sykeston. That's probably the best team in the whole shootout. That's a really good team.
And then East Prairie will play St. Mary's Southside. I'm
anxious to see how that plays out. St. Mary's has a really, really good player. They've got the guard there that's he's being recruited by a lot of schools. He's really, really good, but they don't have a lot around him. So I don't know. I don't know how that. I think that's going to be a good matchup.
I feel like you can make the same case for Noah Johnson. I know he's got Connor Markham with him, but at the same time, I feel like that's one of the things about East Prairie that's, if you had to make a detriment, is that Noah Johnson kind of has to carry the team a lot.
Yeah, at times he does, and especially if Markham's not hitting from the outside. Markham does a great job getting up and down the floor, after some steals and stuff. But if they can't get those steals and get out in transition, they're a lot tougher. And Collins with St. Mary's, he doesn't turn it over a lot. So I'm anxious to see how that game kind of plays out. I mean, you kind of favor St. Mary's, I think, in that one, just because
I would assume.
Just because, but I think that's a good game for East Prairie to get them ready for a district.
Listen, and the last time they played New Madrid, St. Mary's, like, they put on a show in that game. That was one of the toughest games to watch because I was just exhausted by the end of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like that Crothersville Hayti game. It's just like you're just just up and down the floor, just a lot of fun. And Collins, man, he can score. He can get to the rim. He can pull up and shoot. He's a really good player, and they're gonna have to really deal with him. So that's an intriguing game for sure.
And then finally at 7 p.m. that'll be Charleston versus Sykeston.
Just two teams that just don't like each other. I mean, we talk about the Battle of Bootheel. You talk about Dexter Burney. I think Charleston Sykeston may be at the top of that list of teams that just don't like each other. I mean, we can talk all day about issues, with Charleston and Sykeston, and so that game is if you've never been to a game at Charleston when they play Sykeston, this is your opportunity if you can get in, because usually when they play in the regular season, they usually play on Friday nights, and that door is usually locked by about 5:30 before the JV game even starts. And I mean, I've seen the JV game just packed, and they treat that JV game like a varsity game. It's loud, and it's a lot of fun, and it's going to be interesting to see since it's at this shootout. I mean, just how I don't know how they're going to fit that many people in there. Yeah,
and Charleston's already said once those doors are closed, they're closed. They ain't opening again.
Yeah, and they don't. That is 100%. That is truth. They do not.
And I mean, if you can't make it to the 6-man shootout, A-Corp Sports will absolutely be streaming that entire day.
Maybe the best place to watch it.
So, I mean, I'm excited for it. This is always kind of like that, like, season ender for us. It's not exactly a season ender, but at the same time, it's like that end of multi-game stretches that we always have to do. Mm-hmm. So this is always this time where we kind of take a breath in our continued exhaustion.
Yeah, there you go.
Dave, anything else you want to talk about?
No, I'm just excited to see. I want to see everybody get healthy. I want to see all these teams at full strength, and I want to see everybody's A game. Hear that, Puxico? A game. I don't want to see, don't just play with your food. Let's go and let's see some good games going up to this district, and let's get this going.
Yeah, I mean, to me at this point, if I was a Puxico fan, I would say destroy everything in front of you.
Yeah.
So I agree. Don't play with your food. All right, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for listening to the SEMO Sports Zone, and we'll catch you Monday.